Hello and welcome to 99.1 WIUX LP Bloomington. My name is Connor Wright.
I'm Gavin Gorski.
Today we are here with IU men's soccer assistant coach Tanner Thompson. Tanner, thanks for being here.
Of course, thanks for having me on.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah,
my
name's Tanner Thompson. I'm current assistant coach here at Indiana men's soccer. I was a player here for a few years as well, but that's kind of the gist of the intro.
Awesome. Thank you for being on the show. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Do you want to get into the first question, Gavin?
Yeah. I think Connor came up with this one. It's kind of a fun one. Do you have a favorite soccer player? Who are they and why?
For me, I think growing up when I was watching a lot of soccer, my favorite player was Paul Scholes. I was a United fan growing up, and since over the last 10 years, I'd say I'm watching less European soccer and more MLS soccer with how it's growing. But yeah, growing up, Paul Scholes was always the player that I was trying to replicate. I thought he was a magician in there in midfield, so it was fun to watch him.
Nice. I was kind of looking at your LinkedIn. I noticed you went to Granite Bay High School in the Sacramento area. I actually have like a little bit of personal connection. My aunt and uncle and grandparents live like in the area in Cameron Park.
Okay.
My cousin actually went to Granite Bay High School too. I thought that was interesting. But
Nice.
what was your experience like playing soccer in that area, California?
It was great. My high school soccer experience was awesome. The academies were just kind of getting going when I was playing. So I played for a club team, not an academy, and I played high school soccer, and that was a great experience. My brothers and I, we were all a year apart in school, so we were freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. So we each got 2 seasons there where I played with my older brother and then 3 with my younger brother. So it was nice to be able to play with them in the high school setting, and we were very competitive. I think my sophomore year was when we had our best season. We won the sectional and everything like that. So that was a great experience with my brothers because that was the only time I got to play with my older brother. My older brother ended up playing at Stanford. He kind of went a different route with his college decision, and so I only had the opportunity to play with my younger brother past high school. So it was a great experience, all 3 of us playing on the same team. We loved it.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And what was it like playing with your younger brother here at IU?
It was unreal. He actually was set up. He graduated a full year early, so in school he was actually a year behind me.
Okay.
But he graduated high school as a junior because we always had the goal of playing together in college. We'd played together since about 12. We were on the same club team, so throughout the recruiting process, we were always having conversations together with coaches, knowing that we wanted to go to the same school and play together in college. And he had a great freshman season, so he ended up pro opportunities came calling. But we had a great time when we were able. The 3 months we had together, both on and off the field. We lived together in Briscoe as well.
Nice.
So it was a great experience. And then even after he went pro, he was friends with all the guys in that class, so he would come back in the off seasons. Usually MLS finishes up October, November, depending on how the year's going. So he would come back and train with us if we were still in the postseason and hang out. So he, even though he was only there 3 months with me at Indiana, it feels like that we got 6 or so months extra just from him coming back through my 4 years after he had left. So
Right.
it was
Nice.
good.
Yeah, last season I saw Aiden Morris come back too, and I think Roman Celentano maybe. Some
Yep.
guys were in the stands, and I was watching the men's team play, and I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
MLS ends like right before college soccer does.
Yeah, it does. And that was right before they got called into the national team camp, too. So it was great to see those guys before they got that experience going on. I think that Aiden actually came back and was able to train with us, which is great. We love when our alums can come back and kind of show the guys the ropes, especially with a high-caliber player like Aiden Morris, who was in the MLS Cup and has been getting a lot of games in MLS at a young age. So for him to come in and be able to play with the guys and show the guys how to connect passes in midfield, how the different angles, how their movement, how it all plays in to make him such a good player. I think his attention to small details, his angles, his communication, his demeanor in general just makes him the player he is. So we're really lucky to be able to have high caliber alums like that who are doing big things in the pros come back and kind of show the guys the ropes. So it was great to have both of those guys back, and we had a few others throughout the course of the fall semester as well. But the guys love it, and the alums love it as well. So it's kind of a mutually exclusive, a good situation.
Yeah.
Nice.
What drew you to IU soccer in the first place? Or you and your brother, I guess, because you came here at the same time.
So for me, my dad, he was a big part of the 1982 championship. He scored the 2 goals in the championship game against Duke.
Okay.
The first goal was in regulation, then they went into overtime. Back then, they didn't have penalty kicks, so it actually went into 8 overtimes. So they played
8 overtime?
80 extra minutes, yeah. So, and then he got a free kick just outside the top of the box, and he hit it, and he didn't even have the energy to celebrate. He just fell back, and that was it. That was the first IU championship back in '82. So IU's always been close to our heart. We moved. I was born in Chicago, but we moved out west to California. But even being on the West Coast, my cousin played here 2000, 2001. So we've always been watching and staying connected and hearing about the Hoosiers. So once they came calling on the recruiting cycle, both of us knew that was where we wanted to be.
Yeah.
So we kind of told the California schools that we have our decision set, and we committed pretty early knowing that this was the dream and this is what we wanted to do.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I didn't realize how much family you had go here.
Yeah. It goes back a bit. My mom attended here. She wasn't an athlete, but attended school here, graduated from here as well. So Bloomington's special part of the family for sure.
Yeah.
I did not... Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I did not realize that IU men's soccer has the most titles of any college soccer program. Like until the other day, like researching this. Like I didn't realize how good we were. Honestly, I'm a little ignorant.
Yeah,
but
arguably the best in NCAA history.
Yeah, since '73 they have the most championships. Since when we started as a varsity program, which was '73, since then we've had the most championships out of anyone else. There's some schools that won a lot of championships in the '50s, '60s, but starting when we started, we have the most championships. So it's exciting. We're looking to put the cherry on top. We've been close. We've been 4 out of the last 6 Final Fours, 3 out of the last 6 championships. So we're knocking on the door. The penalties last season was a tough one to swallow, but that's the way the game goes sometimes. So these guys, the biggest thing that we've loved as a staff coming back into this spring season is the drive that the guys have. They are absolutely crushing it at training and working to kind of fill that gap where instead of coming so close like we have been the last few years, they want to put that cherry on top and get that 9th star for the program. So that was a goal of mine as a player when I came in 2013, and it's still a goal of mine is to help in any way that I can to get a 9th star for the program. We've been really close. We've been really unlucky, but I think it's just a matter of time. Yeah.
And what do you think it is about the program here? Is it like the history, the culture? Is it something else that makes us so great every single year?
Yeah.
Even in our down years, which was allegedly last year, we were still really good.
Yeah. No, it's the culture, it's the tradition, the history. It's just a lot of different things that kind of all come together. But the culture at Indiana, it's everyday excellence is something we talk to the guys about all the time. But a lot of people talk about those kind of things. But like for us, it's every time those guys step on the field, they are competing. If you come watch one of our trainings, it would be hard to tell that these guys are from the same team, because they come. We want to create a competitive environment at training where then once they get into a game day situation, they're not having to ramp themselves up even higher. They just play the way they were playing in training. We're fortunate to have a very deep roster, so a lot of times when they're playing against their teammates in training, it's actually better than some of the players they might play on the weekend. So from that, it just helps us continue to move forward in the direction that we want to go, and then the tradition, the family, all the alums coming back. You see how much it meant to them during their 4 years, and then having come here as a player, it was some of the best 4 years of my life there. It's a different environment than the professional environment, so I'd say the locker room is much more connected than maybe it can be in a professional environment when money becomes involved. You're playing with your best friends and trying to accomplish the goal of winning a national championship. So it's a really special 4 years, and I think that's why the alums love coming back and giving back, because they know the memories that they created and the friendships and lifelong relationships that they built from their 4 years here. So they want to give back and do everything they can. So I think collectively that just makes a great situation. And then what Coach Yeagley does, from his attention to small details to micro smaller things to the big things like running training sessions, recruiting, and getting out there in front of people, in front of these recruits. I think he is there's no surprise why we have the results we have. I think our school is fortunate to have the best coach in the country, and I think it just carries down from him. It's just, like I said, everyday excellence from everyone involved is a thing that we strive for, and I don't think we come too far off of it. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be excellent every time, but that's our goal, and that's what we strive for, and I don't think we're missing by much.
Yeah.
Nice.
And how does recruiting work for soccer? Because I know for football, it's like, you get thousands and thousands of hours of videos and hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm sure that's not how it works.
Yeah, no, the soccer recruiting, there's a lot of showcases. There's academy showcases. There's ECNL showcases. There's club events up at Grand Park. So we try to be present at a lot of those different events. Sometimes we're at a lot of the academy events for sure, but we like to venture out into some of these other different tournaments, because that's where you can find kind of the diamonds in the rough. And we've had a past of finding some of those guys, and it just puts you a step past some of your competitors if you're able to find that player and bring them in that isn't highly sought after. Then maybe you can save a little bit on the scholarship end of things and provide a great opportunity for a kid. And then by his last 2 seasons, he's starting and providing minutes. It's very valuable for us, and I think, it's a good situation that we have. We're fortunate to have what we have at Indiana. This was our 50th season last year, so it's built year after year. It started with Coach Jerry Yeagley, and then Freitag was in there for a few years, and now Coach Todd Yeagley. But it's just chipping away at it year after year, continuing to strive to meet the short-term goals, and then long-term we end up at a program like this with the caliber that we are nationally. It's just, we just got to get that final cherry on top, and we'll all be smiling in there in the office. So
Yeah. Smile for a year anyway until the next season.
exactly, and
It's
then
time
do
for
it
the 10th
again.
one.
Yep.
You mentioned like the idea of everyday excellence. How would you describe like your coaching values, or maybe even the values of the team in general?
I think we pride ourselves on our tradition, our culture, and our work ethic. I think those are 3 big pillars of the Indiana soccer program. I think it's important that guys, we do a history test at the beginning of the season to make sure all the recruits, if they're coming maybe from the West Coast, maybe they don't know the history of the program, but we feel it's really important for every player that touches this program to know where it's been in the past, so that they can know where where they want to go with it. So that history, tradition, the pride in wearing the jersey is something we talk about all the time. There's been hundreds of high caliber players that have been alums at the program. So just throwing on that jersey, knowing it's an honor and it's a privilege, rather than taking it for granted, that's something that we make sure our players know, because it is such a privilege to put on the Indiana jersey, and it's a privilege to be on staff as well. It's just such a great program that I'm really excited to be a part of it and continue to be a part of it, from player to now a coach.
Cool.
Who do you think, slightly different gear here, but who do you think's the most talented player that you played against or with when you're playing soccer here at IU?
At IU, that's a good question. I would say Chris Muller's got to be up there. He was Offensive Player of the Year in the Big Ten after I think 2017, after I graduated. But even when he was younger, in his first couple seasons when we were playing Wisconsin, he took Wisconsin to a different level. He's had some national team experience since. Mm-hmm. He's played at Orlando. He went over to Scotland for a bit. But he's a very high caliber player. I would say, especially in conference, we had a lot of battles with him. So I would say he's one that pops off in my head first. But there's a lot of great players that we played against. And Notre Dame had Patrick Hodan was an All-American for them. He was a tough one to defend as well. So there's a long list of some great players that we played against. But I would say Muller is close to the top of that list, just off the top of my head.
Yeah. And you were an All-American yourself too, correct?
Yep.
3 times?
3 times, yeah.
What's that experience like? Getting the award and then,
yeah, I was
demonstrating how your success, I guess, on the field.
Yeah, no, it was a great honor. My sophomore year, I think, honestly, I was a little surprised. I didn't know what it was, to be honest. I remember I got the call from our SID who runs the social media, mm-hmm. and she had mentioned that I got chosen to be an All-American. I remember my follow-up question was asking her if that was better than the Big Ten awards I received, because I just was so focused on soccer and so focused on what I was doing on the field. I didn't really think about any of that stuff, especially when I was a freshman, sophomore. Now, once I got into senior year, then you think about it more, because you're starting to think about your steps after IU. But when I was a sophomore, I was so green, so naive, I didn't even know what was happening. But I think that helped me, because I wasn't thinking about the future. I was living in the present. Yeah. And we talk to our guys all the time that if you live in the present, work hard in the present, have success in the present, the future will take care of itself. So I think I was fortunate to be naive, because I found once I got into my senior year, then all of a sudden I was thinking about the future a little bit, and it's distracting at times, So I was grateful to be that green and naive, that I didn't have that problem my first couple years, and even junior year not so much, but senior year definitely. But yeah, it was a credit to. I mean, I played on some great teams. I was an attacking player. I was a number 10, but what the guys were doing behind me put me in a position to have success, and I was just a facilitator. I didn't score many of the goals. I had more assists than goals, but yeah, the program kind of puts you in a position to have success like that, and that's why we have, I think, 75, 76 All-Americans since we started. It's almost on an annual basis, and that's just because coming to a program like Indiana, you're surrounding yourself with the best, and it puts you in the best situation to have collective success as a team, but also some individual success as well. But for me, the team success was always what was most important.
Yeah, and then talking about the future a little bit, after you finished playing soccer at IU, you got drafted in the MLS Super Draft, correct?
Yeah, it was actually supplemental.
Supplemental? Oh, okay.
But yeah, I got drafted up to Minnesota, which was great. my family, my mom has 6 sisters and 2 brothers. A lot of them are up in Stillwater, Minnesota, Minneapolis area. So I had a lot of family up there. I was up there for a couple months there into preseason, and I got sent down and played a season with the Indy 11 in Indianapolis, and that was a great experience there. The fans in Indy are something else, especially we were NASL at the time, but the amount of fans we were getting at home versus away was incredible.
Were you playing in Carroll Stadium at that time still?
Yep, it was Carroll Stadium.
The atmosphere was pretty awesome.
Yeah,
at some of those games.
It was an awesome atmosphere. They had the smoke going when we'd score goals, and it was awesome. I loved it. The surface of the pitch wasn't the best. All the other teams that came in would complain about the surface, but the environment was something else. Yeah. It's just that surface hasn't been redone. Maybe it has since I left, but it wasn't the best in that sense. But the environment made up for it. I love playing at Carroll. I would rather play at home than going away on some nicer surfaces because the environment was so special.
Yeah. And what was the draft like? I mean, because obviously we've never been drafted for anything. We don't know anyone that's been drafted for any sports.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
It's a nerve-wracking experience. For me personally, I had a great 4 years in college, but I didn't have the best combine. So for me, the draft day was more anxious than it would have been if I had a good MLS combine. So for me, I knew what happened at the combine, and I was aware of it. So I knew there was a chance that I could fall down the board, but I was more just hoping that I found somewhere with an opportunity that they were going to give me a fair shot for a first-team deal, and I found that in Minnesota. They kept me for 8 weeks up there, or maybe 6, but kept me up there, and I got a lot. I think I got 3 games in, and was jumping into trainings. And I felt like they gave me a true look, which was nice, rather than some of these situations. Sometimes you get drafted and you go straight into a second-team environment. So having been with getting drafted by Minnesota, they were an expansion club. So there was true opportunity there. So it ended up all working out, even though the stress of the first day, as I mentioned, it was supplemental. I was full transparency. I was expecting to go super draft, and the supplemental draft is 2 days after the super draft. So that day of the super draft was a long day, hearing the picks go. You're talking to your agent. You're thinking maybe this next team that's up might pick you, and then they don't. They went with a different route. So it was a tough day on that super draft day. I actually remember just going for an hour drive, nowhere to go, just clear the mind a little bit after the super draft, and then you have 2 days until the supplemental draft. So there's 2 days of thinking about what's going to happen. So that wasn't easy mentally, but it only makes you stronger in the long run. But yeah, that was a tough period for me. But then as soon as I saw my name come up with Minnesota, I was just grateful for the opportunity, for the chance. So those 3 days are kind of out the window. You go to preseason with them, and it was a great experience overall.
Yeah, I think this is a good break point here. So we're going to take a quick break.
Sounds good.
Yeah, you're listening to GavCon 5. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back to 99.1 WIUX LP Bloomington. You're listening to GavCon 5, and we're still here with Tanner Thompson. My dad submitted some questions over the break, so I guess we're gonna get started with those. Didn't know guests were allowed to submit questions, but we can make exceptions for my dad. All right, so he wants to know how you balanced education and soccer, and also if you think that you can take almost any major here at IU and make it work towards your goals.
So I was in the Kelly School of Business, which is obviously there's a decent workload there, but athletics puts you in a position where as long as you're on top of it, You have access to tutors over at the football stadium that if classes are getting difficult, you can get tutors lined up to help you. So for me, I know as I got into my junior, senior year in some of those higher up 400 level finance classes, that's when I was using tutors. I had 2 or 3 out of my 4 classes towards the end, which was very helpful for me to kind of get through it, because especially in the fall semester, you're missing all kinds of class. So without that tutor to help bridge the gap to teach you some of the things, you could find yourself falling behind quickly. So athletics, it does a great job of giving the athletes all the resources that they need to be able to have success both academically and athletically. It's not easy, but if you manage your time right and you're smart about what you're doing, and you can say some no to some things. That's the biggest thing, is if it's a Wednesday and your friend wants to go grab dinner, it's, you should probably be studying, and just the growth to be able to make that mature decision to not go for a social dinner and instead get your homework done, knowing that you'll have the best foot forward for the next week or the next couple weeks, was the biggest thing. So it was difficult, but nothing that you can't do. You just got to set your mind to it and make sure you're on top of stuff.
Yeah. Sounds like a good advice for everybody, really, not just the athletes here.
Yeah.
Then he also wants to know what, with your experience in soccer and everything you've done, what can the U.S. do, or what should it do to become one of the top teams in the world in terms of just having a lot of soccer talent and playing at a high level consistently?
Yeah, I think we're making the right steps right now. Just the growth that I've seen over the last 10 to 15 years from when I was in high school till now has been absolutely incredible. I think the World Cup coming in 26 will help, but I think the more the country buys into the game of soccer, I think the more we'll see the dividends of having success with our national team. I think the country has been buying in a lot more over the last 10 or 15 years, which is huge. I think we're putting more resources into our coaching education at younger ages, at grassroots levels, which is so important. I think we're following what some of these other countries are doing that are having success in terms of what they're doing with their academies and things like that. And I think as we continue to get more knowledge, I just think it's important not to be stubborn and think our way is the best way, but be open to some adjustments, because we're still navigating the path to put U.S. soccer on the map permanently. I think we're on that path. It was just really fun watching the young team at the World Cup recently, and I think going into 26, we got a lot of juice that I'm really excited about. So it'll be fun to watch that group, but long term we need to continue to build from the grassroots, from the education standpoint, getting young coaches that really know what they're doing and are passionate about what they're doing, so we can continue to start there and then develop these players, so by the time they're 15, 16, they're able to compete with some of these other players in different countries around the world.
And what kind of role do you see college soccer having in all of that?
I think college soccer is a great avenue for us. For example, we are sending guys to the pros on a consistent basis, and some of these guys are like an Aiden Morris type guy that was on the pro path but just needed one pivot step along the way, and IU offered that pivot step where he could get a lot of good games in at a young age. So I think that's what we kind of offer, a unique niche for some of those MLS Academy players, where maybe the club doesn't want them, they're not ready to sign them on a pro deal at that moment, but they go to a school like Indiana for a couple of years, get some experience, maybe just 1 year like in Aiden's case, but get a little bit of experience, and then they're ready to make that step, and then they're ready to make the impact like he did in the MLS Cup final. So I think that is one way that the college soccer really helps out, and then I think it also helps in a different way, from getting away from the MLS Academy guys. From when I say we're looking for the diamond in the rough at some of these crossroad showcases up in Indianapolis, things like that, I think we have the ability to, if we bring somebody into our program, maybe they got looked over and they didn't have any opportunities. We give them that opportunity, and they end up going and running with it and doing some pretty incredible things. And just one guy that pops off in my head with that is Femi Hollinger-Jansen. He played with me at Indiana, has a very unique story. From Goshen, Indiana, small club. No one was recruiting him. IU gave him the chance, and then he was in New England for a few years, and then he actually got drafted to Minnesota in the expansion draft. So he was with me in Minnesota as well. But just situations like that, it's such a unique platform to get games and continue to grow and get games at a high level as well. So I think that is what our program specifically is offering to continue to grow the game, is just a little sidestep option that they don't lose anything, because the biggest thing is they're so close. If they take a sidestep and they lose a year, then maybe they won't make it. So so having a sidestep where you continue to grow and continue to gain experience is massive. So then when they get put into these MLS situations, they're a little bit more ready.
Yeah, how do you think college soccer has changed since your first year here at IU, or has it changed?
Yeah, that's it. It has definitely changed. With just first thing that pops into mind is the NIL stuff that's going on.
Oh yeah.
That just naturally has changed the whole scope or the whole landscape of college soccer, but also college athletics in general. It's different, but it still feels like when you look at Indiana specifically, the program, it's still the tradition, the history. We're still striving to win these national championships on an annual basis. It doesn't feel too different, but when you look at it, when you get out of that internal perspective of Indiana and look at the whole landscape as a whole, it's definitely changing. That's something that we're aware of, and it changes some things on how you can go about some recruiting, and it just changes some small aspects of our life as a staff. But for the most part, we're just chugging along and doing the same thing we were doing, and just striving for the ninth championship.
Yeah. Are there guys on the soccer team that are getting several NIL deals?
Yeah, there's guys that are getting NIL deals. The coaching staff is kind of separate from that. We don't facilitate these deals for the players. They go in and find them on their own. But I know some of the guys are on some NIL deals, and I'm sure others are on some that we haven't heard about because we're supposed to kind of stay out of that whole world for them. But yeah, it's and having a good year like last year, going to the national championship game, naturally brings about some attention to the program and some of the players at IU. So that helped in getting a few deals done earlier this spring. But we're always looking to get more, because, like I said, it's a changing landscape, and that NIL stuff it can really be the difference in terms of if a kid can afford to come to school at Indiana or not. Maybe that NIL deal that he gets allows him to be able to financially make it work, and then he can have the career that he wants to have. So it's definitely a big piece of the puzzle right now, and it's just a matter of continuing to drive the growth of the NIL world in the college soccer environment. I think basketball and football deals are coming like crazy, but continuing to push college soccer to continue to strive for those kind of deals is important.
Mm-hmm.
I guess for those who don't know, NIL is name, image, likeness deals. Yeah. Also, do you think that we'll ever see like college athletes actually getting paid? I know like those deals, obviously they do get paid from that, but from like the universities directly?
I don't know really anything about that in terms of if the universities would be able to pay the students. I'm not really too involved in those kind of conversations, so to be honest, I couldn't really say. But I do think these NIL deals, the way they are coming, will continue to come and will continue to come at a higher clip. So I think there still will be the revenue for college athletes from NIL type situations, I think, will continue to go up on an upward slant. It's just a matter of how fast. But in terms of the schools paying, I'm not too sure about that. For me, that personally sounds far off. But I could be wrong on that.
I know it is like something kind of a controversial topic sometimes, but anyway, it is interesting. I think it is far away too. I don't know if it would ever happen, but
no, it's interesting for sure. It's interesting, and it is nice that there is the name, image, likeness stuff is a good step in the right direction, I think, because like when I was a player, you couldn't use your name, like you couldn't do individual trainings and if you were using your name to market them, which was just a different world. So I think it's good that the players are starting to get some opportunities. Would I like for them to have more? Yes, but I think that'll come.
Yeah. And has the fan base at IU expanded over recent years? Like when you were here, are there more fans now that you're a coach than when you were playing here?
Yeah, I think the fan growth has been steady. The Hoosier Army there on the track is something that we love seeing. It just gets the guys going. Guys like you can see the passion of some of our players like Sammy Sarver, Tommy Mahalik. Some of these guys just love playing in front of those home fans, and it means the world to them. So, and it just creates a more fun environment for the whole game. So we're really grateful for our fans. They've been awesome all throughout. Whether it's the Hoosier Army student section or our alums that are following us consistently, families, friends. It feels like there's a big following for Indiana soccer, which is unique because a lot of college soccer programs aren't getting that following.
Yes, well, I've never been to an away game, but like when you go to another college, is our fan base kind of dwarf theirs in a lot of cases?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the setting and the game, and obviously playing midweek's a little bit tougher because we talk about balancing the schedule, schools going on for a lot of the students, so it can be tough. But it depends on the situation. Like our fans are, I think, top in the country. But like when we went to Clemson to open last season, they had 6,000 fans out, but they were also having their ring ceremony at the game, for their previous championship the year before. So it just depends on the night, depends on the environment, depends on the time of the day, the weather, a lot of different things like that. But when you're looking at it from a collective perspective, I think our fans are the best in the country, and we appreciate all that they do.
What's it like sharing Bill Armstrong Stadium with the Little 500 track?
Yeah, it's awesome. It's nice I'm glad that we're able to get the Hoosier Army onto the track to get them a little bit closer to the field for the games, and they can hit the signboards and get some noise going, which is great. I've been to the race once actually, but I didn't get a chance to go last year. I had a conflict with some soccer stuff, so I haven't actually been able to watch the race, but I see all the setup going on the week before. They bring in all those short-term stands or whatever you want to call them, and get them all put up, so it looks like quite the spectacle. But it's been probably 7-8 years since I've actually seen it myself. But getting back to the fans, one thing I didn't mention was the Final Four run that we had, how many fans were out there in Cary, North Carolina. I was absolutely blown away. We had a send-off at the hotel. Getting onto the bus, there was a good crowd of people there. And then we go pull into the complex at Cary, and there's a huge group of people right outside at the front of the complex with signs and yelling. And then we pull up to the gate of the stadium, and there's another group. So there's 3 different groups meeting us on the way to the game, and each group just got bigger. The group at the hotel was a little bit smaller. The group at the front of the complex was bigger, and then the group just outside the stadium was unbelievable. That's when I took a step back and looked at Coach Christian, who was a teammate of mine here, and I was like, wow, Final Fours are something different, because I hadn't been there as a player. But it was a unique experience for sure, and I'm sure the players absolutely loved it and appreciated all the support. But it was cool to see. I mean, my brother was in that crowd outside the stadium. There were several alums. Roman Celentano was there. A lot of guys, because like I said, it's a family. You don't just leave the program and then watch from your home and keep quiet about it. You love your time here, so when you can and you can make it work in your schedule, there's a lot of alums, a lot of current pros that were there at that Final Four to root for us to kind of seal the deal. So that's unique support, and we love it, and I know the players love it.
What are some of the who are the pros that are the most involved, would you say? Because I know we have hundreds of alumni.
It's hard.
Lots that are in MLS and other leagues.
Yeah, it's hard to pick because it kind of comes in waves. But obviously, my brother is connected. He came back a few times just visiting me, so he was in the stands for a few games. Roman's playing in Cincinnati, so he comes back a decent amount when he can. Aiden Morris is a few hours in Columbus. So in terms of seeing these guys in person, it kind of depends on where they're regionally located and if they can come back or not. But all the guys are following, and I know just from my brother's experiences, they're always talking in the locker room too. Like my brother, when I was playing, he was roommates with Fatai Alashe, who went to Michigan State, and he was drafted number 4 to San Jose. And they would always go back and forth when IU was playing Michigan State. So that kind of happens in the professional locker room, not just in San Jose, but all over the place. So those guys' pride for the jersey is just as strong as it was when they were playing at IU. So it's pretty cool.
We were talking earlier about like growing the sport of soccer in the U.S. I saw online that you and your brother Tommy founded TT Skills Soccer. How did you decide to found that, and what's that experience been like?
It's been great, especially doing it with my brother. But it was more so we just felt like we were very fortunate coming from the environment that we came in with my dad. If I had a question, I could just ask him, and he would tell me what training would be beneficial for my development. So having that easy access to such a high caliber coach just made me want to share that experience with other people. So Tommy and I decided, it was probably 6 years ago that we started, maybe 7, started TT Skills Soccer. When I was playing in Indianapolis, I did 3 or 4 camps up in Indianapolis, just to continue to drive the passion for the game at the grassroots levels like we talked about. I think it would be I'd be a hypocrite if I'm talking about how we need to do it and I'm not doing it myself. So I take pride in it myself, just like a lot of these young coaches do. So we're continuing to grow there. We're not doing camps for the quite so young. We do individual trainings and stuff like that, but the camps are now moving in the direction of kind of with me being on staff at a college instead of younger ages. It's kind of moving in the direction of identification type camps, because I have some relationships with other coaches at different universities, and the recruiting process is such a difficult one to navigate for these recruits that are going through the process, and I know that, having been through it myself. So I think now we're kind of moving into a direction of helping recruits that are in that process, freshmen to seniors, that are trying to figure out what they want to do and how they can market themselves and how they can get college exposure, who they need to talk to, things like that. That's where we're trying to move into that field a little bit more, and get some identification camp opportunities and just some mentorship opportunities for these players so they can have those difficult questions answered as they navigate a tough and stressful process. But my biggest advice to anybody that is in that world now, in that process, is just enjoy the process and don't get caught up in the short term of you played in a tournament and you didn't get any calls from a coach. Just keep chugging away at the process. Keep your options open. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, and be realistic with the school that you're looking at, but try to enjoy the process and take it all in, because having been out of it now, I wish I could go back. Those are some fun phone calls and figuring out where you're going to do, where you're going to pursue your school, what soccer team you're going to join, what conference, all those things are exciting things to think about, but they also lead to stress and anxiety as well. So it's important just to take a step back and enjoy the process, even though I know that can be difficult. But it just use the resources that you have, your club coaches, your DOCs, your high school coaches, and just lean on them. And they've coached some players through it in the past, so they can help you as well.
And then it's a good question to wrap up with is, how do you think next year's team is shaping up?
I think we're gonna have a great year next year. We were so close last year, and the guys coming back from the spring, I didn't have any doubt they would come back the way they did, but I think they probably surpassed my personal expectations of them. They came back with this drive. You can just see it. The guys are working on their own. They're running extra fitness. They're pushing each other in training. The accountability, the ownership has gone through the roof. The communication and leadership is starting to pick up to where we need it to go. So we're really excited about next year.
Nice. Are they going to be? Is it for the transfer window? Is that already ended?
Yeah, there's a new one that'll open in May. I think it's May 1st, May 15th maybe. But there'll be a new one that will open.
Is it possible to add more members to the team then?
Yeah, there's a chance. We'll have to see, kind of figure out what we need to do. We've had a couple of recruits on campus over the last couple of weeks, so we're kind of figuring out what the final pieces to the puzzle that we need for next year. But yeah, moving in the right direction, and the whole staff and the team is excited to kind of put the cherry on top, like I've been mentioning.
Yeah.
They're excited, so it's good.
That sounds great. I'm excited for the next season.
Yeah. Me as well.
We wish you luck.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, guys. This is great.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. It was good to hear from you.
Yeah.
Talk about the men's program.
Of course.
One of the great things that we have at IU.
Yeah, for sure.
And thanks to all our listeners. Have a good weekend. Thanks for listening to 99.1 WIUX LP Bloomington, and we'll be on not next weekend, but the Friday after that with, I don't know who, someone else.
Hank Duncan.
Hank Duncan, right, yes. Talk about Little Five and his experience working for the city of Bloomington, so stay tuned.